It's the Skedaddler Part 4, and look who's back in town. Where's Lonnie?
He's out of town. Way out of town.
Hey, Dennis, what should we do today?
Let's clean this carb.
Let's clean the carb. Well, good morning. It's Saturday morning, and absolutely nothing happened on these carbs the other night when Dennis and Brad were over. So I'm going to get after them this morning. First, let me bring you in and show you why I got a pile of 5 carbs here. All right, your first question is probably, why are you using a Tillotson nutter? Why not a Mikuni round slide or even a flat slide? Well, this is one-linger racing, and you're required to use either a Tillotson HR HD or a Walbro WR or WD, with the one exception of a Colt 250 with the Fuji 244 single that can run that stock Mikuni carb. Nothing else can run in any other carb in this era, to my knowledge. Maybe there's some key-in that you can run on a Yamaha, but I'm not familiar with those. Anyways, we're running the Tillotson for the obvious reason that these are a simple, robust carburetor, and they're really easy to keep working. The Walbros have a lot more parts. They're a lot more complicated. They're a lot more difficult to keep working, and I feel they're more trouble-prone. So, you can blow a Tillotson apart on the trail if you need to. Fix it, unclog it, whatever, for the most part. So anyways, why 5 Tillotsons? Well, these are all kind of different carbs. So if you look on the horn, there's a number stamp there. This is like an HD something 39A. This one is HD 20A. So I got this whole stack of carbs, and they're all a little different. So one thing is, some carbs will have return line fitting coming off of there. Others won't. You see that? No return line on this one. Another big difference is over here on the throttle attachment, where this little, cable nut goes, and how or if the cable hooks on. So this carb is set up for a straight pull forward with the cable up here. It uses this rear cable nut. You could hook up on this one. A lot of them just have it in that back position, which gives you a really quick throw, much quicker than you need. That's going on with this one. So that's main reasons. The other is the impulse line. So this carb has an impulse line right here in the pump stack, and this carb does not, as you can see. So this carb got its impulse through the flange, through this hole. This came off a Rotax, off a Skidoo. But other than that, this carb meets all my criteria. I like where the cable pull is, all that. So what we're going to do is we're just going to swap parts around, and we'll use one of these impulse fittings off one of these other carbs. And we'll just swap it out in the pump stack. Otherwise, they're pretty interchangeable inside. When I go to rebuild them, this is all I ever use. Now, Windorosa's Vertex now, but this is like a $6 or $8, just a little diaphragm kit. I usually don't replace any hard parts unless I have a specific problem or a specific reason. So with that said, let's get ripping. So this down here, most of these have a little black fitting. Sometimes it's white, and there's just a screen underneath, as I'll show you. Let me get that out of there. So that's your inlet fitting for your fuel. And like I said, generally just a strainer underneath it. So there you go. It's just a little brass line in there. This one here, and also this one, probably easier to take this off. Doesn't have a petrified line. This has got this inline filter. I don't like these. I don't like them. I'm not going to run it. Those are not my choice. I like the strainer, and I like to put the filter in the fuel line and have a clear filter that I can keep my eyes on and know if it's getting clogged. So we'll just continue to blow apart the old pump stack here. All right, so your pump stack's pretty simple. This bottom one, I'd call that your inlet. And I'll try to keep it in order until I get there, but it's snagging a little on the old diaphragms. Come on, inlet. All right, so this bottom one's your inlet. Bottom one, it's installed on the carb. And it's pretty simple. It's got these two holes. The mating gasket has these two little flappers in it. Sometimes you'll see these gaskets are a clear plastic. A lot of times it's this Teflon impregnated kind of fiberglass stuff. These are what I prefer. They're just a little more flexible. I feel like they last longer and they pump better. So there's your bottom. I'm already past it. Here's your next stack, right? So you got that, another gasket, and another flapper. So this is, this is how it goes together. That's how you get it to pump. Another gasket, and here's your diaphragm. Your diaphragm, in this case, is, that one's still good. Ooh, that hardly ever happens. Usually your diaphragm is rock hard. This one's still flexible. Your diaphragm takes the place of the float. So this little doohickey here presses on this lever for the needle and seat, which is up there. So we like that. And I don't know what to say. That diaphragm's good. I'm going to have a hard time making myself tear it up to remove it, but here goes. I guess we'll just rip the Band-Aid off. I got a new one. So there you go. So there's your diaphragm. 9 times out of 10, when your Tillotson isn't pumping, this thing is petrified, or usually these don't get petrified. Usually it's just the diaphragm. So there's your basic Tillotson pump stack. We'll get all these soft parts over here. And here's our hard parts. And the one we're going to swap out, obviously, is this top one right here. That's got this big corner on it. So that'll be this one. So this one's going to get swapped for this one. So to continue with the disassembly, next we're going to take out the needle, and there's a spring underneath the needle arm. So we'll just get that off of there. Don't lose your spring. It's a tiny little spring, but it's important. All right, now for the real test. Does the needle fall out? No. Does it fall out if I wrap the carb? No. So we're going to get the needle out, and we'll be right back with something kind of a grabbing tool. All right, I got a little pliers here. They do make different needles. Some of them, this little arm will have a fork on it, and the fork will actually pull the needle up. This doesn't look too bad at first glance, but I'm going to put on the super cheats here and give it a really close look. Yeah, that'll run. That'll run just fine. So I'm not going to put this needle through the ultrasonic. Usually rubber parts do fine, and this is Viton tip, but we're just going to put it over here on the table. Let's continue with the disassembly. Next, I got to go dig up a socket, and we'll get the needle seat out. All right, I had to hunt up a very thin wall 3/8 socket, but there we go. Oh, didn't quite come out. I'm just rounding it. There, it broke free. All right, so there's your needle seat. She's out. We're just looking at it. There is like a copper gasket way up in there. That's probably going to just stay there for the ride. At least I hope it will, because I don't have a spare. All right. Next, we're going to pull out your high-speed needle. And this is your jet. That's your main jet right there. You twist this little needle in and out, and it adds more or less fuel. Let's see. We got one of them red gaskets. We know we don't send those through the ultrasonic. Oh, there's that copper piece. It did fall out. Good. We found it. It's not in the ultrasonic bath. That goes in the small parts bin, along with all this other stuff. We'll get the needle out of here before I throw it in the bin. Oh, pretty easy. Got that little rubber washer. That will not go in the ultrasonic. Steel washer. Spring. All right. I got to get this red washer off of here. Good. Good. So we know if it's a red washer, it doesn't go in the ultrasonic. We learned that the hard way on one of my Polarises. So one more to take out. That's your low-speed needle, which is just literally your low-speed jet. And this has got a rubber on it that we're going to get off, but the rest of it can go right into that small parts bin. So there we go. All right, so this is a nice, really complete carb. It hasn't been muckied with much. Now I'm going to do the controversial modification. Right here, these two screws that hold on the choke, we're going to delete the choke. Why am I deleting the choke? It's one less thing to break in the middle of a race. If those screws came loose and went through your motor, bad things would happen. I'd delete the throttle plate too, except for you can't. You know, you need a throttle. So there we go. I'm sure that really disturbed some people, but get your shaft out, and now there's a ball and a spring in there that you got to get out, because you don't want those going through your motor either. There's the ball, just a little detent ball, and where's that spring? Well, we'll go fishing. This is what this hole is for. That's your hole to fish that spring out that's on behind the detent ball. All right, I got my little dentist pick here, and there comes that spring. You want to get that out too. You don't want that spring going through your motor. There it is. So that's a complete choke delete. Optional, you can JB weld these choke passages and this right here. You can JB weld these shut. I'm probably going to do that because when I choke it now, I'm going to have to hand choke it. So I don't want that. That'll be making my choke less effective. But that's for later. So this is as far down as I'm taking this carb. I'm not going to pull off the throttle plate. Seems like everything's good there. There's these two Welch plugs. A lot of people will swear to you every time. You got to take out those Welch plugs and clean it. I've done it like twice in my life. And for reference, I started rebuilding these in about 1976. So go ahead and do the math. But I've been rebuilding Tillotsons for close to 50 years now. And yeah, those, I'm just going to leave them. We're going to send this body through the ultrasonic just like it is. The only other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get into this pump stack and I'm going to get that other piece with the impulse line. Oh yeah, and this passage here, don't worry about it. The gasket stops it. When I put it on the sled, there's no hole in the gasket there. So it doesn't matter. Your impulse line still works. So bring you back in a little bit. Brought you back sooner than I was expecting. The second carb, the diaphragm's petrified. So here's what I'm talking about. It's rock hard, you know. So there you go. That's what we're talking about. Yeah, petrified. Looks like I got some gasket scraping to do. Maybe not. She came off clean. A little bit of dried up goo in there. The ultrasonic will take care of that. So here's my plate with the pulse line and my skidoo plate. You can see, the only difference is the impulse just comes from here instead of through one of these other holes. All right, off to the ultrasonic. Oh boy, this carb just keeps giving. I just noticed another thing to show you. This has a different kind of a needle and seat on it. And we may opt to do a switch for this one. This is what some people would call a gross jet. So it's got this glass ball inside the brass. Can you see that? Instead of a typical needle and seat. And it's loose. Even though this carb is more gummed up, I believe these are less prone to sticking. So I'm going to get that out and send that through the ultrasonic as well. Here's the gross jet out of the carb, and you can see it's got these passages to let fuel in. And then when the arm pushes up, it's sealed, and when the arm lets down, it flows fuel through those passages. It sits this way, so there's a little gravity involved. But boy, I feel like that's going to be less prone to sticking. So that'll be a little more complicated on the setup. We're going to have to mess around with the lever arm a little more, but I think we're going for it. Boy, I love that ultrasonic. This almost looks like a new old stock carb. So check in the description of this video, and there's some stuff called master stages that I use in the ultrasonic. So, you're still wondering, Nutter, those Welch plugs, you didn't take them out. How are you sure the passages aren't plugged? Well, this Welch plug goes to this idle air passage, and this one goes up to the main jet in the Venturi. And also the main jet connects to here, and the idle connects to here. So it's pretty easy. You just air check it. Sorry for the noise, but I can actually stick my finger in there, and I can feel the air coming out of that hole for the idle, and it'll be the same here. So they're not clogged. So I didn't need to take those out, and now you know the secret of the Welch plugs. If you got it clogged and you can't get it unclogged, you're going to have to find some Welch plugs, take them out, clean everything out, and put them back. But these are just peachy. I'm not going to mess with them anymore. All right, let's start with the carb reassembly. So I got my little basket of small parts that went through the good old ultrasonic. And the first part I'm going to find is this little copper washer. And this thing drops down this hole. And there's only one way it goes. Well, there's two ways. But there's the way it was, and there's the other way. So just pay attention. Put it back in the way it was. And we're going to go with that gross ball. Gross jet. Whatever they call it. That ball instead of the typical needle. That's reputed to not stick like the needles tend to. All right, got her in there pretty snug. Pretty sure there won't be any fuel leaking around that. So, next thing, we got a couple things. We've got this little arm. You got a flathead screw that sort of holds it down, and then you got the spring. Okay, here's where it gets tricky. Probably the trickiest part of putting this thing together, I think. I usually start the screw a little bit, and then I'll lift up the arm. I'll put the spring in its pocket, where it usually sort of stays. Get that under the bulge in the arm that holds the spring centered. There, just like that. All right. Now, this is actually pretty good. The arms actually level across right here. You can get a little straight edge in there, maybe a little razor blade or something short, and check it, but I'm eyeballing it. That's pretty good. So that means that gross jet is just about in the right spot. So that's good. All right, what else? The next thing, let's see, that's the old needle and seat. Here is the high-speed seat. And you'll remember the high-speed seat had this red washer under it that we didn't, well, not a seat, it's just an adjuster. It's got this red washer that we didn't send through the ultrasonic, very deliberately. So torque that down. And then the high-speed screw is the one with the roll pin in it. And so what you got is a spring. There's two springs, one for the high speed, one for the low speed. But you got a spring, you get this little brass washer, and then you got this rubber piece. And there's one of these rubber pieces on each one. And that rubber piece is just to seal the air out. Make sure you don't get air leaks around the screw. Very lightly seat it, just with your fingers, right there. And now we're going to go one turn, and 1.5. I don't know what I need to have it on this carb. No idea at all, but that's what it's getting. All right, same deal. Brass washer, little rubber seat on the needle that seals the air. And do the low speed. This one I will lightly seat it with a screwdriver, very lightly. Dennis is here. Can you see him on the camera? He's going to go play with the pups. All right. 1/2, 1.25. Good enough on that. All right, next we're going to get into our gasket kit here. Let's start getting this put together. So, you got your diaphragm. And we know the diaphragm goes on like so. And we got to look at the height of this button. This rivet, if that height's wrong, bad things happen. And it is significantly different than this old diaphragm and gasket. Significantly different. So somewhere we got to adjust for that. Otherwise it's just going to flood all the time because this one's taller. If it was shorter, you wouldn't get fuel. So I hate to take a grinder to that. That's clearly not the right thing to do. So what am I going to do? I guess I'm going to have to bend the lever arm a little bit. And it's no big deal if you bend your lever arm a couple times. I'm going to lower it just slightly to make up for the height of that button. It's kind of a guess. All right. So I've got it just a little below the surface there. So now all these are pinned, so they all go, one way with the pins basically. And the pins are the 3 small holes. And you'll know when you got it right because everything lines up and works. That's not right yet. All right, well, I'm feeling it. It's been like 10 years since I've done one of these. But we'll put the plate on just to try to reference how the gasket gets oriented. All right, there's how the plate goes. So the gasket has got this big hole in this ear. That's got to go right there, one way or the other. And look at that. All right, properly oriented. Now the diaphragm's easier because you just sort of match the gasket. which I had. Just get those 3 pins lined up. Basically basically foolproof, unless you're me. All right. So there's the first stage of the pump stack. We got the diaphragm in there. Now, the next stage is apparently this guy. And we know these go over here. These line up with that. Gets much easier now because you have this tab that everything lines up to. Why is that tab and that tab not lined up though? Yep, it's that way on other carbs. All right. So I'm going to say this gasket goes on first because you need those 2 little ears on this black piece that act as check valves. They need to sit onto the piece that goes above it. They need to seal to that. I'm not in love with these black style ones here. I like the gold style, but I suspect it'll work for a while. You know, if it's going to die, why, it'll die right in the middle of the race, won't it? All right, so we got that gasket. And that's the very bottom one. This is the next one that goes on. And it goes on like this. Once you get that pump stack started, you see these squares, and you've got these flaps on the gasket, so it gets much easier. So the next gasket, obviously, is going to seal to that. So stick that on. Stick that on. I wish the kit came with 2 of those instead of 1 of each of the other kind. And that completes your pump stack. And if you look through, you should be able to see through all those holes for all the screws, which I can. All right, I torqued all those pump stack screws down, and I added on the little screen and, of course, the inlet. So that's it. That concludes Tillotson rebuild. I think I'm going to have good luck with it. I don't know why I wouldn't. So I guess next step is to get this thing mounted up on the sled and give it a try. All right. I mentioned I was going to clog up those choke shaft passages there. Just for the simple fact that I want to be able to hand choke it, you know, basically put my gloved hand over that. So here's what we're going to do. A little bit of blue tape. Just to seal it off so that my JB doesn't go everywhere. And we'll do one at a time. Just because of gravity. I suppose if you got the JB putty, you just do that. That would be even better. But I got the old-fashioned JB today. So we'll just start with this. All right, it's the next day, and I just want to show you how the carb came out. Obviously, it still looks great. You can see the JB weld there and the choke shafts, and those are clogged up good. And just for measure, I put a little bit here in the impulse line. The carb flange on the JLO R295 doesn't even have a hole there, but I don't know. I just decided to seal it up because I felt like sealing it up. The inlet light on the bottom, I didn't set to any particular angle or anything, but obviously you can just take out the center screw, rotate it wherever you want, and tighten it up again. So I'll do that when I'm plumbing the sled. And then the last thing I want to mention is I didn't put on those plastic carb velocity stacks. I didn't put on a gemmed stack. What I did is I grabbed one of these kitchen strainers off of one of those parts carbs. And, the purpose of that is to keep debris out. And if your goal is to finish the race, keeping debris out of your motor is probably pretty crucial. A full-on air filter is probably a little over the top, but this will help. Say a stray whatever comes loose on the engine and happens to bounce past there as I'm running wide open, as you tend to do with the one lung engine, and it gets sucked in, well, it won't get sucked in now. It'll get stopped by the screen. So, seems like a good idea to me. I don't know where to find them. Swap meets, I guess. I'm sure nobody makes them anymore. So, I want to talk about the resource you need. This is, the 11th edition of the service manual? 11th edition. They still sell this on Amazon. You can buy this book new. It's not cheap. It's got a ton of great information in it. It's got sections on rebuilding Tillotson carbs, Walboro carbs, Mikuni fuel pumps, Kian carbs, all different kinds of clutches, all different kinds of motors, and there's sections on all the different makes, Kawasaki, whatever. You can see them going by there. Outboard Marine Corporation, all the different makes. This is a great resource that you should be buying one of these if you're into old sleds and you don't have one yet. I seldom see them come up at swap meets. People just hang on to them. You might find one on eBay, but if you want to get one right now, follow that link in the description. It's going to say Intertech/Climber Service Manual. So forever we called these the Intertech Manual and it said Intertech on it. Now it says Climber. That's what it is. Follow that link in the description if you're working on these old sleds, and that'll help you a lot. So, thanks for watching. Huge thanks to the patrons. You guys are the best. I really appreciate the support of the patrons. For everybody else that's wondering, well, the patrons support the channel every month with a small donation, and in return, they get to watch all the videos early. They get their names up on the screen like you can see, and they can watch ad-free on Patreon on the website or the app instead of watching on YouTube. So really appreciate you guys. You're the best. Everybody else, please make sure you're subscribed. YouTube randomly unsubscribes people. No one seems to know why, but they do that. So check and make sure you're still subscribed. If you've never subscribed, you should subscribe. And you should hit the notifications so you know when I got more videos coming out. And I don't know. With that said, I guess we'll see you on the trails.